Вітаю, колеги.
Greeting, colleagues. This is 254th day of heroic resistance of Ukraine. I'm Natalia Starukh. We are working from the Медіацентру Ukraine. With us, we have Oleksandr Starukh, the head of Zaporizhia Oblast military administration. Greetings, Oleksandr. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to our heroes. We can see that the Russian enemy continues to pummel Zaporizhia region with all grades of weaponry. What damage has been inflicted to the Zaporizhia region? What is the toll? Yesterday, we sustained 63 shelling of the towns, cities, and communities. 45 of them civilian infrastructure has been destroyed. We sustained no human casualties yesterday, but there is shelling in Pole, and unfortunately, 2 people have been killed, a civilian husband and wife. So the enemy continues to wage terror on the civilian population by destroying the civil infrastructure and killing the innocent civilians. Last night, missile strikes were launched. One of the community was affected. One missile hit a gas pipeline. Thousands of people are cut off the gas supply. I don't know how the gas pipeline was a threat to the Russian Federation, but this has been the Russian target. We are working to restore the gas supply. The people are determined, committed, and working to sustain the war effort. We see that the enemy is attacking civil infrastructure and civilian population. What other types of weapons apart from the missiles have the Russians deployed? There were kamikaze drone, the loitering munition deployed towards Zaporizhia, but they were shot down. Our armed forces did a good job. The air defenses have brought down the kamikaze drone. At first they came as a surprise, but now they have the algorithms in place to counter the threat, and a lot of the drones have been brought down. Now the cold weather is setting in, and the enemy is pummeling the critical energy infrastructure. So how are you with the energy and water supply in your region? There are 3 parts of the region: the occupied territories, where everything is in a short supply because the gas supplies to Melitopol and Vasilivsk have long been destroyed and interrupted. The area of hostilities is in even worse condition. Even if some infrastructure is restored, then it is destroyed shortly after. And in the unoccupied territories, we are working hard to maintain the infrastructure up and running. There was a hit last week, but the energy crews and the first responders have been able to have all the systems up and running. And we have to thank all the people who are aware of the need to save on power, and this is their contribution. We have the rollout schedules whereby we disconnect some neighborhoods and manufacturing facilities according to schedule. There are some deficiencies, but in a few days people will get in the route, will know how to plan their days. Well, we try to rotate the rolling blackout so that people wouldn't have the power the same day of night. So we rotate the schedules, we have the plans in place, they've been published, people are getting used, and we'll try to adjust their life and work around the realities as they stand today. What can you tell us about the evacuation of the people from Zaporizhia region? Do you have the numbers? Is the dynamics changing? Are the people from Zaporizhia leaving the occupied territories in Zaporizhia? People are leaving the temporarily occupied territories, some of it in Zaporizhia and also from the neighborhood Donetsk and other like Kherson regions, people have been able to break through, and almost 800 people have been able to leave towards other regions in Ukraine from Zaporizhia region. We are working to support the communities, and people are leaving the areas close to the theater of operations. We are evacuating people from the areas of operation, from the occupied territories, and from the region overall. What is the logistics of the people leaving the area? Is it feasible to leave the area? As we know, the Russians are hampering the free movement of the people. Is it so? And tell us more. The logistics has become increasingly complicated compared to September. Even there are few people leaving the area. The stringent limitations are in place. People are prevented from leaving. There are some bureaucratic obstacles that have been put in place, and at times no passage is allowed whatsoever. This is further multiplied by the seasonal troubles to do with the fact that at a certain stretch of the road where the bridges have been detonated, people have to drive across the earthen dam, and after the rain it's hardly passable. So all that put together gives us the number of 165 people who've been able to break out. 212 were able to break out yesterday, but it's not like the 1,500 people who've been leaving earlier. But we heartily welcome all the people who have been able to break out of the occupational hostility. We're seeing the people trying to evacuate, they leave the region, but are people going back to their homes in Zaporizhia? Certainly. There's a certain dynamics. Whenever the shelling stamps up, people leave. And when the shelling subsides, people choose to go back home. We're seeing the ebb and flow. The regional center came under a powerful attack a month ago. It was a terrorist attack where so many people were killed. Then many people left the city. The neighboring villages left the city. But when the situation calmed down, the people returned to their home. We are seeing this trend. There's a difficult situation connected with the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. According to the Institute for the Study of War, they assume that the occupiers are creating pretext to connect the electricity grid from the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant onto Russia. What can you tell us about this? They're claiming the nuclear power plant as theirs. This is nonsense. They're putting incredible pressure on the staff, on the team, but the nuclear power station cannot provide power if it's not connected to the grid. Of the 4 lines, just one is in action, and it is feeding into the Ukrainian grid. And this is exactly the grid that is used to feed the reactors that have been put to cold stop, but they still require some power to cool the processes. The nuclear power plant used to feed the Crimea, the other occupied areas. That was when all the connections to the nuclear power plant were intact. Now it would be very difficult to restore the connection. The Ukrinform and the energy crews are in better position to tell you that. But now most of these lines have been severed and no power can be delivered. What other activities are you seeing in Zaporizhia? I know the Russians are trying to enlist Ukrainians by force in the so-called volunteer battalions and indoctrinate the people. We did hear that some collaborators are creating the so-called volunteer units. The overwhelming majority of people are sensible and patriotic and are not prepared to die for the doctrines of the enemy. That's the air raid warning you're hearing in the background. Thank you for this conversation, Oleksandr Starukh, the head of Zaporizhia Oblast military administration. Thank you, Oleksandr. Please stay safe. This is all for now. Please follow the announcements at the Mediacentru Ukraine. Stay there as this day brings